Today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With the beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone from adults to teens and even children can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com. Again, that's csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. I'm your host, Chris Fuller.
And I'm Marc Hyde.
And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the importance of making disciples. What's that look like, and how do we go about it? Marc, are you ready for this conversation?
Let's go fishing for men.
Let's go. Hey.
We haven't done that in a little while. Let's go fishing for men, boys.
Let's
go
fishers
fishing.
for men, fishers for men, fishers for men. Oh, sorry. I don't know.
What's the actual song that goes with that melody, though?
I have no idea, but it sounded good.
And you grow.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
it.
grow. Read your Bible. Pray every day. Pray every day. Hey,
Pray every day. Hot dab. Oh.
Either way, welcome back, Fuller.
Wow. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Dude, good. So last week's conversation, your boy took over the entire beginning. Oh, the computer's trying to do a software
Oh,
update.
no,
Cancel
stop.
it. Cancel
Don't
it.
do it.
YouTube doesn't want to die. Oh, cancel. Oh, good.
Okay.
Oh, whew. No software
That
update.
was close.
But last week, your boy took over the entire beginning of the podcast.
But you know what? That's okay, because it's been so long
It
for
has
us
been. So-
that it was nice to hear what's going on in
I
your
want to
life.
hear what's going on in the Fuller world, man.
You know, not a whole lot. Just
Really?
living life and just work and church and Getty Music Festival, July 22nd and 23rd. Your boys from ITC are going to be there having real conversations. And actually, if you're around and you come, you could be a part of the recorded conversation.
I love it. And I want to say, we opened up a bunch of boxes before we recorded.
Oh, yeah.
You've been busy.
I've
getting
been
ready for this thing.
I've been administrating the crap out of it.
Basically, I mean, what have we ordered so far? We had to order a big old tent.
So I got the tent, the lights for the tent, 2 banners. We've got a couple yards. Well, they're not like yards. They're like little tiny mini billboards, but they're like 18 by 24 inches. So it's
Yeah, like they're
like legit.
corrugated plastic. Yeah.
And then we got a bunch
yep.
of Bibles, stickers, swag bags.
Dude, you got some cool Bibles over here.
I've got some designed special and Getty coffee mugs
Ooh.
that you and I will be drinking out of the coffee mug.
Yes, sir.
And guess what? There's a giveaway for one special coffee mug of the RTC and Getty.
And so the only way they can get this giveaway is if they show up to the Engage Festival,
They
right?
have to show up to the Getty, which is in Leonidas, Michigan,
Right.
Southwest Michigan. So if you're in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and you want to make a trip to an amazing music,
Hang out with us.
We got some really cool, there's some cool artists going to be at, I Am Day is going to be there.
Which I'm excited about.
Jordan Felice is going to be there.
Which he was
Chosen.
He was the boy on The Chosen, right? When he did the Christmas special.
The Christmas special,
yeah.
So there's some good artists. There's going to be some good food. We are getting set up right by the food trucks. So we're going to be smelling and be
Fat
like,
boy happy, huh?
Fat guy, daddy happy.
All right, but I'm looking at all the stuff we have over there. So tell me, there's like a big box of study Bibles over here.
So
what's that about?
You know, your boys over here want to make sure that you got the wood, right? So
The wood?
The word. The word. Word of the day.
Word of the day.
So if you are in need, right? And this isn't just like hey, I've got 10 Bibles and I want another one because I don't have a CSB, but this is like, hey, I don't have a Bible and I really need a Bible. Or, hey, I know somebody who doesn't have a Bible, a brand new Christian that needs a Bible. Reach out to us.
Yep.
And we will get a Bible sent to you. Now, we have a limited supply, so again, if you have it or if you have the means and the funds to get your own, we always encourage that, and you can get those at csbible.com.
And they got some cheap ones because you actually ordered a bunch of these little mini compact ones for like, what, $5 a piece?
So the compact ones I want to say I got for $3.99. Now, they're not study Bibles. They're just a CSB. But, and then...
you got the Apologetic Study Bibles,
Apologetic
though,
Study
which are pretty
Bible
dope.
I got on special from ChristianBook.com.
Oh, those are Christian books. Okay.
Yep. And so, but there's some other study Bibles that, they have good Bible sales, like up to 70% off sometimes on ChristianBook.com. So I would encourage you to go there and check out if you can afford one or not. But yeah, so that's what's going on over here.
But I'm excited for this music festival, man.
Dude, I am stoked.
Because like you and I used to go to Pulse Fest and Friends Fest, and I didn't get to go to Creation Fest, or I always wanted to go to Cornerstone Festival, like the hard rock.
Yeah, I never
stuff.
got around to
I always
those.
wanted to go to it, but it's kind of cool to. Like, we just recorded a video that they're going to slap up on the Jumbotron.
It's going to be awesome.
Which, I mean, A, my hair's like a big poof, and B, we're not wearing any RTC swag, so I feel like we may have dropped the ball on that one.
So that's the other thing we're waiting on, right? It's in the works. We're supposed to have RTC swag coming, new shirts for us, right?
Nice, because I've worn mine into the ground. It looks pretty
You're going to have 4 shirts coming, and I'm going to have 4 shirts coming. So
I like it.
And
I've
actually had my family reach out and go, listen, I really love your RTC shirt. So if I pay you the money that it costs to get one, can I get one? And I'm like,
we need to relaunch the store. We got to
Send me.
refigure that out. We've been way too busy with just life, let's be honest.
So anyways, let's play the Never Have I Ever game again.
So
let's do
never
that.
have I had to leave them a review real quick.
Never,
because
never.
Maybe we should do
have
this on the
ever,
show.
ever
They were
been
like,
so happy.
you've already flipped through 5. Leave us a rating and we'll give you more. Maybe we should do that for RTC. You've listened to 5 episodes. Leave us a rating and you will get more.
I like that. All right. Anyways,
we can't do that, but that'd be pretty dope. All right.
let's do this.
That's a dumb one. Oh, never have I ever eaten food that fell on the floor. Dude, we have kids. That's all we do.
Listen, there's a thing
That's all we do.
that
5
some
second
people
rule.
call 5 second.
5 second
All
rule.
right, fun story, real fast.
Oh, here we go.
Fun story. I was in the movie theater, and there was movie theater popcorn.
Which
Somebody
movie
else.
theater? Because that's that.
Niles
Ooh.
Wonderland.
I love that theater, but it's a little.
Well, popcorn was spilled on the ground. I was hanging out with my friends. I was probably 17 years old.
Okay.
And my buddy's
Okay.
like, dude, I will give you $5 if you eat some popcorn off the floor, man. And I'm
Bet.
like, dude, I'm indestructible.
bruh.
I'm 17 and indestructible. Of course I'm going to eat it for $5.
And it's
And I did.
pre-COVID.
This was a while ago. This was 2005, 2006. So it was a while ago. But yeah, your boy, like, dude, I would eat anything for money back then. I ate a science experiment. I drank a science experiment once. Vinegar and baking soda, you add them together,
No,
it creates
you
a
did
gas.
not.
And my buddy's like, dude, I will buy you McDonald's. All my guys
did
are
you
like,
explode?
my-
Like, what happened?
Oh, dude, I had to burp so bad. The next week we come into the chemistry class and they go, I never thought I'd have to make this rule, but please do not eat or drink the science experiments. And I'm like,
We call that the Fuller Clause.
so yeah, the Fuller Clause. But
so
yeah,
at summer camp, they always had the slop bucket at the end of the table where we had to take all the food that we had leftovers and put in the bucket so that the guys could clean up faster.
did you eat it?
Heavens no. No, but I would cheer on my cabin mates to do it.
Sure.
Would you
Of
have
course.
done it?
For money?
No. This is just for bragging rights.
No, only for money. I only did that. I ate like lightning bugs and all sorts of stuff for money.
And now that you're old, would you still do that for money?
It depends. So back then it used to be like $5. Now it's like $50.
You want a good dinner.
Hey, listen,
You want a good dinner with Janelle.
Inflation. But
With
anyways,
the way gas prices are going, that is true.
that is a great
but yeah,
never have
so
I ever.
I've always though,
Let's do one more.
one was I've never uploaded a video to YouTube. That's all we do.
We've never done that.
Never have I ever broken up with someone over a text message. Did you ever break up with someone over a text message?
Not over text messages. Now, I have been petty and broken up with somebody because they didn't like Notre Dame back when I was like 18.
What?
They were an Ohio State fan.
That's fair.
And
That's
I'm
fair.
like, no.
That is fair.
No.
Get outta
I
here
said,
with
okay,
your
listen.
pot leaf
I said,
helmets.
listen,
Like guys.
if we got married, could you be okay being, surrounded by Notre Dame? And they're like, nope, Buckeye all the way. And I said, well, it was nice knowing you. And I broke up with them.
So your married advice to those young single people out there is make sure they like your same college football team. If
Listen,
not,
if you
axe them
can't-
fools.
If you can't agree on football, what can you agree on?
Axe them fools.
No, not
Goodness.
really.
So have I ever broken up with someone via text? No, but I have only been dumped like once in
And
my
it was
life.
through
It was
text?
through text.
So, I'm sorry, Janelle, I'm going to tell a story. of yours. So Janelle,
and actually, I should say it was over text because back in the day, it was like AOL Instant Messenger. It was AOL Instant Messenger.
Never have I ever, right? This is the fuller edition. Never.
No, it was text. It was text. Yeah.
Never have I ever been broken up with using Bible verses.
Janelle broke up with you?
No, Janelle got broken up with based upon Jeremiah 29:11.
You put. No way.
Sorry.
No way.
And she might correct me and go, no, it wasn't that. But I'm pretty sure it was.
Get down here right now.
I'm pretty sure it was 29:11.
Put our business out there for everybody. You put your business.
I believe it was like, I can't be with you because God has plans for me. Because he knows the plans that he has for me. Jeremiah 29:11. I'm like, she told me this, where I'm like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah.
It's like God. It's kind of like those dudes or those girls where it's like, God just called me to a life of singleness. And then next week they got a new piece. Like,
hey, let me introduce you to my new girl. Why do we sound like Keanu Reeves right now? What was that? Ted and something. The movie that they just redid from, I forget what it's called. Somebody's going to be like,
John Wick?
No, not John Wick. They did a something in Ted's Epic Adventures or something like that.
I have no clue what you're talking about, man.
I forget what it is, but it's like they were like stoners back in the day, and they were always talking like this, dude. And then they just remade the movie like that.
Dude, where's my car? That's what I think.
No, that's what I think. Dude, where's my car? That's what that is. But this is like, dude, like from the West Coast of California in the 80s, man. Like, let's go get some za. That's that one. So, anyways, let's move on to coffee.
I'm not drinking any tonight,
You're
bro.
Not drinking any?
I'm caffeinated up, bro. I've already had, that's my 5th cup today.
But your boy over here is caffeinated.
Yeah, but you got the cool creation cup where like the rainbow appears.
Yeah, but it's cooled down right now, so the rainbow has disappeared. But
that's kind of like that rainbow that we had here in Osceola the other day, dude.
That's what I posted on our Facebook group.
It was epic.
You're like stuck on the dude.
It was epic. I keep looking at the camera too. I don't know why, but it was epic, bro.
It was a double rainbow, actually.
It was.
So I am drinking a Panama from the Funny Farms, which is actually in, what was that town called? It's somewhere here in Indiana.
Oh, that one place.
Yes, that we went to, that Janelle and I went to on vacation.
Southeast Indiana.
Yeah, it was delicious. So this is really good coffee, in my opinion. But Mark here
I'm drinking Aldi water. Like it's from Aldi. I'm drinking water from Aldi.
It's good Aldi water,
It's pure aqua.
Aqua.
Oh, good.
Anyways, Mark, why don't you go ahead and read the review?
This is from Zion Laziness, which I think is just hilarious. Awesome content. New listener here. I use Spotify regularly, and I felt convicted. Ooh, convicted? Convicted? The Holy Spirit be talking to you? Okay. I felt convicted that I should start. Oh.
It wasn't listening to you.
I thought you were convicted to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
He's like, the Holy Spirit convicted. Oh, wait. No, that's not what you're talking about.
Can I start over?
Rewind. All right, go ahead.
New listener here. I use Spotify regularly, and I felt convicted that I should start listening to more godly principles. Anyway, I was at work, and I had only 5 minutes to look for something on the fly, and yours was the first one that showed up when I searched. Love the banter. You're welcome. I lost it. And how you guys approach difficult subjects. Thank you guys for what you do. Definitely recommend. Just like always, if you are a listener, reach out to us and we can send you that mini swag bag for leaving us that review.
And we are so efficient at it right now. We actually have a little thing where we go ahead and put the name and the address and the swag bag information in there. And then Janelle,
and there's a little checkbox.
And then Janelle, she gets a notification on her phone and goes, "Oh, I have swag bags."
Does she actually get a notification?
No, not
really.
Oh,
that'd be dope.
But she checks it. Like once, she's got a reminder that she checks it once a week now, and so she gets it, and then we have to get everything. She gets everything together, and so it's usually 2 to 3 weeks before she gets.
But we gonna get it out.
But yeah, we get it.
And if you get one of those mini swag bags, let us know in the Facebook group that you got it.
Take a picture of yourself and post it.
There's some people that I haven't heard from a while that were like, we have some old friends that have been with us for a very, very, very long time. But, Facebook is just one of those really cool places where I've seen people be able to reconnect and re-engage with the podcast. Like, dude, Ryan Laux is an old buddy from junior high. Old buddy from junior high and high school. He was the first one to get me playing with his band, and we played a live show once. It was pretty cool. And he's a listener, and we've reconnected because of this podcast and also because of the Facebook group, which is just really dope. That's really, really dope. So it's just cool to see actual community start to happen. Yeah. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're in that Facebook group, we don't need to be the only conversation starters. You can also start your own.
Actually, we kind of prefer not to be.
It'd be easier.
In all honesty, we would rather you guys like start the conversation. We may jump in, but we'd rather have you guys like start it.
Which is cool. And a lot of you guys are introducing yourself. Some of you guys saying
awesome.
like basically like long time listener.
We got a listener from
first-time
Scotland.
caller, which is dope.
That's awesome.
And then we got I can't remember what her name is, but she's over in Europe. She said she's in Romania, but now they're currently like planning to move to Germany. Like, what the heck?
That's awesome.
It is dope. But either way, if you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's dope. We need those ratings. But if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we will send you that mini swag bag.
All right, let's dive
Let's
into,
jump in, homie.
we're about 5.5 minutes later than what our goal was, but
We can't go.
we're going to try.
We can't go short on our banter, homie.
Next week, we're going to try again.
To go under. Do you think next
Under
week
10.
we're going to go under
We're
10
gonna
minutes on our
do it.
banter?
It's going to be the fastest, so be prepared. Buckle up.
Okay.
The
all
gauntlet's
right,
been
Marty
thrown.
McFly. All right, Marty McFly. Let's do
88.5
it.
miles per hour, Marty. Come on, Marty.
Set this up, homie. That's like the fourth impression you've done tonight.
I'm really caffeinated right now.
Yeah, my heart's hurting. I need to keep drinking water.
Janelle's probably like, you guys are drinking way too much coffee. Anyways, so
Yeah, I've only had one cup tonight.
let's dive into the conversation, and it's time to bring the conversation down real low.
How low can you go?
Wow,
Can you go down
got
low?
really quiet.
All the way to the
Anyways, so we're going to talk about making disciples and what that looks like and what a disciple is. And yeah, this is actually another question from another listener.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
And my father-in-law actually had a good conversation about this this past week for my sister-in-law's birthday. It was really awesome. So it's just kind of fitting that we're going to talk about it this week.
All right, cool.
So
Dive in, homie.
disciples, there's been a kind of a small command from a certain somebody going out and making disciples. Well, this was a command to his disciples, and we follow in their stead. Not that this was a command directly to us, but it's kind of indirectly, right? Followers of Christ, this is an indirect command.
Teach them what I taught
Yes.
you, and then the next
Sure.
person. Yeah.
So it's
continue.
Matthew 28, 16 through 20. It says, the 11 disciples traveled to Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshiped. This is an interesting thing, but some doubted. Isn't that interesting? I never caught that before reading this a couple days ago, but
Yeah, that some doubted while they were there. Yeah.
when they saw him, they worshiped, but some doubted. Jesus came near and said to them, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. So again,
We call that the Great Commission.
that's what we
the
call-
Great Commission that Jesus gave his disciples.
that's why I said it was just a little small.
That's a little one.
Just a little one from, just somebody. Oh, wait, no, it was a big
Jesus.
It was a big command from the Lord. So, Bill Hall says success should not be measured by how many disciples are made, but by how many disciples are making other disciples, which I thought was a really cool
like
quote
that.
because that should be okay. Mark, when I ask you this question, we're going to go into the definition in a little bit, but
Okay.
What do you think of when you hear the word disciple?
My first thought was the band.
Okay, what surrounding the Bible?
Oh, gotcha.
let me quantify it here.
Basically,
what do you
it's
think
someone
of?
who follows another person. Like I think of like an apprentice almost.
Sure.
Like I think of like the carpenters, right? Like you have the master carpenter or the master steel worker. Then they got their apprentices, and they are following. And some of it I know because of my own study is someone who follows the other person so close so that they can become the next person.
Right.
It's almost like, if the master carpenter doesn't replicate himself, there might not be another one. So he has to bring an apprentice on. And then when the apprentice, and same like right now with electricians, where it's like you're a journeyman.
Sure.
You're on the journey to be a master electrician. And then you got to turn around and train the next one. So that way the next people know what to do and it continues on. Because if you don't, you're going to lose the trade.
Sure. And actually, this was part of the culture back then when Christ commanded this, right? So justdisciple.com.
It's a blue collar community back
Right.
then.
So
man.
justdisciple.com says rabbis would select young men who they believed could become rabbis in the future. So they were not rabbis, but rabbis selected them thinking that
they were chosen,
Right.
yeah.
So it was common that at the age of 12 or 13, a young man would be selected to become a disciple and would then travel around several years with the rabbi. Rabbis would frequently publicly preach and teach with a group of young men following them. And the idea was those young men were apprentices or rabbis in training. During their discipleship, the young men were being trained in the ways of their rabbi. They would be trained in his theology, how he taught, his philosophy, and how he believed the Jews should function during that time. The rabbi's hope was that when they died, the young men they had trained would then take on their mantle, and their way of doing things would then continue.
You know what this reminds me of, to be honest with you, when I read this? Top Gun. That's 2 times in a row.
That's because you just read it. Oh, here we go, Meatloaf.
I was going to say, I didn't have to say it. I didn't even need to say it. I did not say meatloaf.
Pause.
Even though, said it. Even though, Beth, it's been a few
Pause.
weeks. Dear, it's been a few weeks.
Pause.
Dear, it's been a few weeks.
Pause.
Okay. But in Top Gun, like the idea is whoever wins the trophy for the Top Gun award generally goes back in and becomes an instructor for the next one. Because it's like, why would you want to train under only the second or third or fourth best pilot in the world?
Yeah, right.
The whole Top Gun program was the fact that we are the best of the best. We're going to train you to be the best of the best, and then the best of the best of the best of the best will then train the next recruits that are coming in as it continues.
So yeah, there's that analogy, and basically what you were saying earlier before I read that is you're kind of being trained to take up the mantle, right? To carry on in what they're doing.
And we see that in journeyman trade. Like now, did you ever do any of this with being a steel worker, or is it a little different?
I've had to do it in other areas, but semi kind of not really.
Because I had to do this in my field with web design.
Yeah.
Like I was a subcontractor of a subcontractor.
Sure.
And so I had to learn the ropes from him, and then I was able to step into those positions of where I am.
Sure.
A little different.
Well, so
you're taught.
The Greek word mathetes, right, which means disciple or student, appears 261 times in the Bible, but only in the New Testament, i.e. never the Septuagint, which is the Greek Old Testament. Furthermore, it only appears in the Gospels and Acts. The word disciple. Now, there are many, many other verses, New and Old Testament, that talk about students and followers and all these other words. But the mathetes, right, which means disciple, that word itself is only 261 times. It's only found in the Gospels.
And how many of those are in reference to the disciples?
There's a lot. And there's some that are like naming the disciples as well. So what is a disciple? Desiring God puts it this way. The standard definition of disciple, which is a noun, is someone who adheres to the teachings of another. It is a follower or a learner. It refers to someone who takes up the ways of someone else. Applied to Jesus, a disciple is someone who learns from him to live like him, someone who, because of God's awakening grace, conforms his or her words and ways to the words and ways of Jesus. Or you might say, as others have put it in the past, disciples of Jesus are themselves little Christ.
And we've talked about that a lot.
All the time.
What the word Christian is. And, this is where it kind of gets the rubber meets the road when it comes to being a Christian, is the fact of there's so many people, and we've talked about this word a little bit, and I know like this is the big thing with Dietrich Bonhoeffer is easy believism.
Right.
And, the cost, what's the cost of true discipleship?
Sure.
And there's a lot of times where, say, oh, I follow Jesus, I'm a Christian, and it's like, okay, so what makes you a Christian and what makes you a disciple? And we had a sermon series one time at my first winter retreat they pulled off. It's like, are you Christian? Or are you a disciple?
Right.
And are they different?
A believer or a disciple, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. So why is discipleship even important though, right? So we talk about there is a believer and a disciple. Well, discipleship is more important because we want people to become fully committed followers of Christ. Discipleship helps believers to grow in their faith, to grow in maturity and wisdom, and build their faith on a strong foundation so that they can then disciple and lead others towards Christ. So it's not just learning for yourself to just learn for yourself and always be in that discipleship role, but you become a disciple just like the disciples, the 12 did. And then at some point, right, when you've learned all you need to know, then you go out and start making disciples.
And I want to say that's something that's been really cool that we've been able to see from this podcast. And I know this wasn't part of any of our show notes.
Sure.
But we've had a lot of people reach out to us where it's like, hey, I started listening to this, and then I brought my wife into the picture, my boyfriend in the picture, my friends in the picture, where I'm able to have these conversations.
You guys
with
have
others.
inspired me, and now I'm starting my podcast based off of your podcast.
Yeah, or like, now I feel more prepared to lead my Bible study with people who have said that too.
Right.
And no, that's kind of like the cool thing that we have always envision this podcast is the fact that when we have these conversations, the goal isn't for it just to stop in your ears.
Right.
The goal is for you not to take what you had the conversation and then continue the conversation with somebody else in your community or that needs it.
And we always say that we are a supplement, not the main course, right?
Yeah, we just a vitamin, homie.
So we like to give what I call the food for thought, right?
Yep.
So here's your food for thought. Now go take it back and study it for yourself.
Yep.
Right? Because
go to church.
We don't claim that we're 100% always correct.
I mean, you're not.
Well, okay. I claim, I'll speak for myself here. So I'll claim that I'm not always 100% right and correct. So always study for yourself. Never just take the word of somebody. Always go and search for yourself. But
nevertheless,
I want to go into one more thing, and then, man, the conversation's just going to begin.
All right.
Right? This is just kind of what I call the pre-work.
This is the warm-up act.
So how do we make disciples, right?
Good question.
So the Gospel Coalition, see, I'm just bringing out all the old articles that I used to name all the time. But the Gospel Coalition has 4 different ways, right? And so this is not stuff that I came up with, but I liked what they said. So 4 different ways that you can make disciples, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about here is how to make disciples. Okay. So number 1 is teach. At its core, discipling is teaching. We teach with words. We teach all the words Jesus taught his disciple and all the words of the Bible, right? So teaching's important. 2, correct. Sometimes discipling requires you to warn others about the choices they're making, right? So like, hey, that bus will kill you if you keep playing out in the street. That's a correct. That's a warning. People grow when you teach them general truths. Yes. But when you correct their particular errors and correct with gentleness and love. Part of being a Christian is recognizing that sin deceives us and that we need other believers to help us see the things we cannot see about ourselves. Number 3, model. Jesus didn't just command his disciples to teach people. He told them to teach people to obey. So it's not just words, it's also action, which James talks about. And then the 4th one is love. Discipling is a form of mutual love. Yes, there's something of a teacher-student relationship, but there will also be a peer-to-peer mutual, I can't even say it. Say it for me.
Peer-to-peer mutuality?
Yeah, mutuality. There you go.
I can't say Sith, but I can say mutuality.
And love, such that the discipling often goes both ways, right? And this is where we get the iron sharpening iron, right? So I learn from you, you learn from me. You see faults in me, I see faults in you. We help each other through those faults. It's an ongoing circle.
And it makes sense when you break it down. Like, just going back to the tradesman role, right? Like, I think of like the electricians nowadays. Like, I talked with Randy a lot about his journey to be, from apprentice to a master electrician type guy.
Right.
And, obviously there's teaching, like you go to the union hall where you take the classes and the courses and the safety regulations, all those different things. As you're on the job, you have to be told, no, like that's not the right way you do that. Like that could literally blow this place up into smithereens. Like that will make this place literally erupt like Pompeii.
Right.
That's not safe. And then you have other ones where a model where it's like, okay, it's not the classic like do as I say, not as I do. Like I think that's a load of crap. But more the idea of like, again, like I'm gonna go back to Top Gun. The actual pilots, like the actual instructors, were out there kicking their butts.
Right.
Like you got to come chase me. I'm gonna teach you how to do it. I'm gonna tell you what you did wrong, and I'm gonna show you how to do it.
Right.
And then you have to love in the process because love is the ultimate goal. And you see that in 1 Corinthians, where you could have faith that moves mountains, you could have all the gifts and prophesy and all those things, but if you ain't got love, you're annoying. You're a clanging gong or a sounding a sounding cymbal. But I think where it gets a little bit hard when it comes to discipleship is when there's a like even like electrical or carpentry, there's a right goal, but there's sometimes different ways to get there. Like one guy might do that, like for example, like when you install an electrical outlet, the old way to do it was to wrap electrical cable or electrical tape around the actual outlet when they had metal boxes.
Sure.
You don't need to do that anymore.
Keep it from grounding out.
Yeah, you don't need to do that anymore in plastic boxes. So it's like, at what point is when we're actually correcting about what's Christian and what's not, how do we separate preferences from Scripture and different opinions? Because like if someone speaks into my life about something and I'm like, okay, well, I disagree with you there because of this, that, or the other. Like,
So going back to your analogy, right? The
Which
tradesman analogy, right? Mm-hmm. So when you go in as an apprentice and you're learning from a journeyman, the only questions you ask are, how do I do this? Mm-hmm. You don't question their methods because you don't know any better.
Okay.
You don't know any better, right? So back to your analogy on wrapping electrical tape around a metal box versus a plastic box, right? So if you're only ever shown and never told the reason why and don't understand the reason why you're doing it, but you're going to wrap and I deal with this all the time. It's unbelievable how much I have to deal with stuff like this. But they'll wrap the metal box, right? And then they'll wrap the plastic box because they don't understand the concept of why the metal box is wrapped and the plastic box is not wrapped, because it hasn't been explained to them, because they haven't reached that level of needing to know and understanding that.
Right. Kind of like with kids, when you're teaching little kids, I don't need to tell you why you shouldn't play in the street. Just get out of the street.
Sometimes you have to just obey, right? And if you remember the concept and the culture in which these disciples who were commanded to go out and make disciples were in, right? And I get that there's some cultural separation, but understand the culture of they were modeling themselves to be like Christ, right? His words, his ways. Now, we're separated by 2,000 years, so we may not have a whole different culture, but so we may not have the same foresight of what that actually looks like, but we do the best we can. But as an apprentice, I would say learn what you can. And as you grow more, right, and this is why, yes, you can start making disciples, but you don't want an apprentice teaching an apprentice.
Right.
Because they may teach them wrong, right? So there's a huge difference there. There's a gap. There's a reason why Christ sent forth his disciples, because they had been with him 3 years learning from him. So then he sent them forth. He didn't send them forth to go out and make disciples while he was alive. He didn't. He sent them out to preach the good news, right? But he didn't send them out to make disciples. He didn't do that till the end of his ministry.
Right, which is what we just read.
Right.
And I think that might be why, like what James 3:1 says, it says, many of you should not become teachers, my fellow believers, because we know that we who teach will be judged more strictly.
Sure.
Because, I think of people that grew up like in the independent fundamental Baptist world, where it's like, this is how the Christian lives, is you wear, girls, you wear culottes, your skirts, men, you have to wear pants, and your hair has to be cut, no beard, you gotta listen to this music, this, and all these things that when we look at it, we're like, well, that's preference-based, that was taught as theology. Like, those teachers will be held in a higher account for that.
Sure.
But I guess that's where I get a little nervous, where it's like, when we talk about correction, where it's like, okay, what is the standard baseline that we have to go? Because we have, all these different denominations that do all these different things differently, and how do we know which one's right and which one's not?
Let me ask you this. Have you yourself ever corrected somebody on something you thought they were biblically wrong on?
Mm-hmm.
And did that person or another person have a different theology based from what you had to what they had?
Mm-hmm.
So who was right and who was wrong?
Me.
How do you know?
Because that's what I thought.
Right.
And I think
so
a lot of it,
everything that gets taught, right, is yes.
And I say that tongue in cheek, just so people know.
Well, I look at all the different denominations and all the theological separation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody thinks they're right. Nobody thinks they're the wrong ones. It's every other person's the wrong one. So I would say you don't always have to, when you're an apprentice, yes, you just take in, you learn.
Then you adjust and you figure out your own way.
But then as you grow towards more experience in the journeyman, you can listen to things, but you don't always have to believe things. This is where it's important to search things out for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you do your own study, right? I used to be stuck in a way where I believed what I believed and nobody was going to change what I believed. And you know what I found out? I was wrong. Mm-hmm. I can learn from a lot of people, and sometimes it just takes listening, right? And they may not have everything correct, and I may not, and I know I don't have everything correct, but you listen to their point of view, and then you search the scriptures, and then you let the Holy Spirit guide you into what that conviction looks like.
And there's something to be said about humility and trying to see what's right. Like I'm not going to be so arrogant in certain. I mean, there are certain of my dogmatic beliefs that I won't give ground on,
right?
Such as the Trinity,
sure.
Such as the atonement,
sure.
Such as the resurrection.
Jesus Christ was the Son of God, right? Yeah,
right. Like you bust out the Apostles' Creed. Those are, and we talked about like are these creeds important in other previous episodes?
And they are.
Like, these are the basic tenets of the faith,
right?
So therefore, that's it. But I'm also not going to dogmatically die on a hill for young Earth creationists versus old Earth versus theistic evolution.
And I'm not going to die on it from pre-wrath, pre-trib, post-trib, preterist. I'm not going to die on that hill either.
Right, and I think there's something to be said about like there's the song that's really hot right now. I found out that the lead pastor of the church I'm at right now, every year he sits down and reads the Gospels in like as few sittings as he possibly can, like actually he goes on a retreat and just reads the Gospels.
Sure.
So he's like, if I'm a follower of Jesus, I need to learn the red letters.
Sure.
And that's the song that's what I was saying. The song that's hot right now is Red Letters. The red, and I read the red letters. And the fact of this is what Jesus actually said, and this is what we need to do, and we need a model. Now, obviously, everything Jesus taught, we don't know all the things because even in John
said it would fill the earth.
It filled the earth, and there still wouldn't be enough books to contain all that Jesus did, said, or taught. But we have enough in the Scripture. No, this is what Jesus expects out of us.
Well, we have
so
what
what
God,
can we live in?
We have what God preserved for us. That's what we have,
and
that's what we go and base our life on. But I think as a young person, right, you are very. I found myself younger in my faith. I was more dogmatic than I am now on a lot more issues, and now it's like I'm not as dogmatic on some of these issues. And they're like, well, people go, well, why not? Don't you know what you believe? I said, yeah, I know what I believe. Do I know 100% that it's 100% correct and there's no error in it? No, but here's what I do. This is the staple, and that's where the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, these are great roadmaps, right? These are like, okay, here's the baseline of the church, and they're pretty easy to understand. And so, yes, I'm dogmatic like you on that. I'm dogmatic on a lot of things. The Trinity, I'm dogmatic on. But there's things that I was once dogmatic on that I'm not so much anymore. I used to be dogmatic on pre-wrath. Pre-wrath is right and everything else is wrong. Now I'm like, well, I could see how preterists would come up with what they got. I could see how pre-trippers believe that and what they're, I don't particularly believe it, but I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm not saying it's right either. I'm just saying I don't know 100% for sure. This is what I believe, and I guess we'll find out in the end. That's what I say now.
Right.
And I think that is so important when making disciples, right? Teach them the hard truths, the dogmatic truths, right? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how to make disciples. So when you're going in making a disciple, you teach them the dogmatic truths. And then if you're a good teacher, you will say, here's what I believe, but there are other beliefs, and these are the other views. Now, here's why I believe those other views are wrong, but you should study this for yourself. And that is a good way to help them grow and not just take and believe, because that's how they can be tricked by false messiahs and false teachers, but to study to show themselves approved, right? Which is what we're told to do. And that is an important step from becoming just a disciple to a disciple maker.
All right, so let's talk discipleship 101. How about that? Let's call that discipleship 101.
Sure.
I know we have a lot of listeners here, right now that are young to the faith. We've had some, which was super, super dope, that one of our podcast listeners got baptized at Southside 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, this past Sunday?
This past Sunday.
When I was in Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
Right, I was so swamped with family stuff. I responded to it, but I was like, best luck. It's so cool.
That's why I took the video. I was like, man, Mark's going to love this.
I needed that, man.
It was funny. Those guys were like, hey, where's Mark at this week? And I'm like, I'm sorry to inform you, Mark, because they're like rewinders. They're only on episode 50 something. And I'm like, I'm sorry to inform you, Mark is not.
Church.
Mark is not here. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And they're like, you just got to deal with me. But then they really threw me off because they're like, yeah, their dad was there to watch the one brother get baptized, Sean, and he goes, Fuller here is kind of a celebrity. I'm like, whoa, that's a big word.
Let's back this gravy train up.
That's a big word there. So
let's back this gravy train up.
I'm just a sinner, just like everybody else. I just happen to have a microphone and we broadcast it. That's it. That's the only difference.
But it was cool. But I'm thinking of people like him. His name was Sean.
Sean,
what's up, homeboy? So we got people who just got baptized, which is their public declaration of, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to follow the way. We have other people that have messaged us and said, I've walked away from the faith, I've come back. We've had other people who are like, I've been a Christian for a long time, but I've never really been serious about it. I'm trying to figure this out now. What would you say should be their first step in their discipleship journey?
Find a tribe. Find a good teacher, right? A good, solid teacher that has has some sort of professional training, I guess, is what I would say first.
Okay.
A pastor. I would start there. I would go with a pastor, because most pastors, I know it's a blanket statement, have decent baseline biblical training.
You'd hope.
Baseline. Now, then we everybody flies off the handle in every other area, but most pastors will agree that the Apostle Creed is true. Most pastors will agree that the Nicene Creed is true. I think you and I would say that would be a baseline, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that's not somewhere to just study those and stop. That's a good baseline to be.
But this is what the disciples did with Jesus, is they sat under the teachings of Jesus. And so therefore, as what's the role of a pastor? The role of a pastor is a under shepherd, right? Until the great shepherd returns.
Sure.
So we need to submit ourselves underneath the teaching of the pastor and sit and just learn and process and understand.
Now, that's not where we stop, right? Because our studying is not based, our relationship with Christ is not based upon how much we hear from the pastor and get from the pastor.
Right.
That's, again, supplement. Now, that's a bigger supplement than what we're giving you, but it's still supplemental. You have to study, like 2 Timothy says, study to show thyself approved. That is your goal, right? You need to study. Now you need guidance, and that's where I'm saying find yourself a good teacher that understands the baseline. And all you simply have to do to know if they're a decent teacher or not is say, hey, do you believe in the Trinity? And do you believe in the Apostles' Creed? And that if they say yes to both of those, then you go, okay, I'll start studying under this. Now, never just take what they say. Never take what we just say. Always go search the scriptures for yourself. This is why we've tried to get in the good habit of giving scriptures, even though I don't think I have any scriptures.
We have the Great Commission.
We have the Great Commission. But most of our podcasts, we try to give multiple scriptures on to say, hey, this is why we believe what we believe. It's based off of these scriptures. Study for yourself.
Right, but look at even Acts 2. Like, what did the early church do? Acts 2:42. They came together to study the teaching of the apostles, to the prayers, to the breaking the breads, and the fellowship of the saints.
Sure. Well, and you got to remember, in that culture, all the disciples had a very good knowledge of the Old Testament, right? They knew God.
They knew they knew the Old Testament prophecies by the back of their hands.
Right. And now they've seen them fulfilled, right? And now they're studying under the way of the master. Mm-hmm. So now they're kind of lucky and not lucky at the same time, because they're lucky because they were so close to the teachings. They understood the teachings pretty clearly. But then they were unlucky because there was people trying to mix their own theology and Judaism and everything else in with it. And so,
yeah, definitely. So what would be the next step you would say? Obviously we say, find a good pastor to sit underneath their teaching, find a tribe to connect with. So obviously you're not alone.
And then I would say my third bit of advice, right? This is Bible should always be number one. Mm-hmm. Teacher, tribe, 2 and 3. Number 4, I would say, is get yourself, if you can afford it, a good commentary. If you can't, go to like what you did, like Logos and stuff like that. And Logos, is that what it's called? Logos.
That's expensive Bible study software, though. Yeah, like $500.
But don't they have free stuff on there, right? They have some free stuff.
Some free stuff. You use the iPad app.
If not, Bible Hub has some free stuff on that app. There are some resources out there where you can get some free stuff.
A good solid study Bible is pretty good too.
Or a study Bible. Or hey, guess what? There's these things called, people forget about them, I know, but they're called libraries. And the books are free, and they have commentaries. So go down to your local library and check out a few commentaries of, say, hey, I'm going to study the book of Ephesians, and so I need the commentary on Ephesians. I go check it out and read the Bible and read what the commentator says. Now, there are some commentaries that some people prefer over others. You're going to get,
some
again,
are wrong.
You have to remember, commentaries are people's opinions on the scripture.
Based on their studies, yes.
Based upon their studies. So it's not the Bible. It's not the Bible. Let me say it again. It's not the Bible, right? It's not the Word of
like
God.
Spurgeon, it said, visit many great books, but always come back to the Bible.
These are good resources, but always check them against Scripture. So like me, myself, we've talked about this. We've talked about different ways to study the Bible. But my favorite commentary is probably my expositor's commentary, which is based off the NIV, so it's an easier read. Mm-hmm. But it's got so many good theologians that I trust, right, through all my studies that have written the expositors. So that's why I tend to like that. But that's just me personally. I'm not saying that everybody has to like that. Mm-hmm.
So, my thought as I'm thinking through all of this is generally the people that are the most excited to share their faith are people that were just most recently redeemed, you know?
Sure.
And you hear these stories of all the time where it's like, oh yeah, when I first got saved, I didn't even know what I was preaching. I just knew I was preaching Jesus. That's what I was telling people all about.
Right.
And, that's where the discipleship comes in, where it's like you sit underneath someone. But I don't, this is where some of the conversation you have to think through is the fact of at what point do you turn around and start replicating yourself too. Is it's like as you're learning, you should be pouring into other people too. And that's why I think there's so many really cool opportunities at churches with student ministry, with children's ministry, with volunteering, with doing all these different things to get involved in small groups. And, that's the thing with Christianity is it's not meant to just sit in. You're not supposed to be a sponge where you just soak up. You're supposed to be where you soak up and then you squeeze.
But, again, going back to the analogy of tradesmen, right?
Right.
I would not want a apprentice to put themselves in a place of harm's way. Right. You don't.
I'll tell you how we dealt with that at Southside.
You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, get involved, but there are things that you shouldn't be doing. I would not say a brand new baby Christian should become a pastor.
Well, no, I mean even Paul says that too.
Of course, yeah, but you don't put a new baby Christian or somebody with not a good firm foundation and firm grasp of the Bible in the place of teaching leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't. You put them as, hey, you want to serve. That's awesome. You should. Everybody should want to serve. Hey, could you do me a favor? If you see a new face, go out and greet them. Just say hello. Ask them who they are, how they've been, how they find out. That's an easy starting point, right? It's not. It requires zero theology.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
That's showing the love of Jesus.
That's Jesus. It's Christianity 101, showing love, right? And that's where you start.
Yeah, and that's why I like a lot of those churches. And I tried this at Southside where, generally whenever someone would want to get involved with student ministry, I'd always meet and chat and talk with them or whatnot. But generally, I would pair them with another leader.
Sure.
Like I'd pair them with this leader, I'd pair them with this leader, so they're not responsible for teaching or for small groups or for conversations, but your job is to make sure that every one of these teens know that they're loved and they have a home here. Sure. That's your job.
Sure.
It's kind of same idea with the church.
Sure.
Because there's, I don't want to say there's this, there always seems to be this like tier system in church where it's like you have your pastors and then those people, the theologians and the teachers and the high lofty Christians, and then you got your average Joes and then you got your new believers.
Sure.
And I don't like seeing this whole separation. Now, I think there needs to be in some regard, but at the same time, it's more the fact of wherever we are being poured into, we need to find a way to replicate that to somebody else too,
Sure, but you have to be careful, right? Because you could do more harm than good, right? If you don't teach sound biblical doctrine, and you're saying, well, I'm just replicating, I'm just doing this, and you start pouring.
Which is where we've seen a lot of weird splinter groups come from.
You see a lot of dissension in the church. A lot of dissension. A lot is when it happens that way, that they don't know what they're doing, and they go start talking, and then either that person that they're talking to walks away, and they walk away from that church, or splinter off, or the leadership comes and says something to them, and then they get hurt and upset because their pride's hurt, and then they walk away because they don't understand that correction is part of the brotherhood, and that's just part of it, right? We're not going to be 100% correct. We're still human. We're going to get things wrong, and we have to submit ourselves to the leadership. That's that submission, right? Because we can't go. I like what Pastor Scott says all the time, Southside. He goes, I want to do all these things, these small groups, connect groups. He goes, but what I don't want is people breaking off and being like, well, I don't need Southside. I'm going to start my own church, because he goes, that's not what it's about. We should still stay connected. We should have these conversations. If there's a problem, we should always open that up and have the conversation with the leadership. We are supposed to still submit ourselves to the leadership. And a lot of times we don't like to do that. We like to be the ones in charge. We don't like to submit, especially people with my personality. We are like strong-headed, strong-willed leaders, and we're used to leading, right? And so it gets hard for us to submit at times, and we have to, like for me, I have to constantly remind myself, no, God has put Scott over me, and I am under him, and I have to submit to him, and I constantly remind myself of that. That way it keeps me in the place that God has me, which is under him.
So let's make this thing full circle then, all right? So we talked about discipleship 101, what should you do when you're just getting started, but we also have a lot of people who are very seasoned in the faith.
Sure.
If they don't have anyone they're pouring into, what encouragement would you give them?
Find you somebody. So, where is our mission field for making disciples, right? And this is where we got to this is where I kind of want to, we'll start lowering the plane here.
Lowering the plane.
We're gonna put the landing gear down, but we're not gonna quite land just yet.
All right, Maverick. Do a flyby.
So, the mission field, it's so simple, yet so difficult, especially for like parents. Our first mission field is our kid.
Mm-hmm.
We're making disciples and teaching every day, not just through our words, but through our actions. The things we do, the way we talk to not only them, but our spouse. If you're single, the way you talk to other people, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if you're a single parent looking to have another relationship, how you do is their kids are a sponge. All right. So I would say to parents, if you're seasoned and you're not pouring into your kids, get pouring into your kids, because that's your first disciples. What you teach them, they're going to go and replicate more than likely. And you're kind of their first view of God, mm-hmm. right? And this is the thing that people always go, hey, the Great Commission says, go forth and make disciples of all nations, so I got to go to Uganda on the mission field. And it's like, no.
It's people in your own backyard, man.
No, you got...
Literally.
Family is first, right? That should be your first priority of making disciples, whether as a father or mother. If you're single, right, then it goes, hey, what about my friends or my neighbors? I can witness to them, right, and make disciples of them. Or how about, hey, I'm a 30-year-old single man, and there's this 18-year-old that just got out of youth group and is kind of feeling lost right now because he's no longer in youth group.
And honestly, there's a ton of them out there.
So why don't I go ahead and grab him, and I'm a little bit more seasoned in the faith, and let's go grab lunch once a week and
buy them lunch.
Yeah.
Buy young adults lunch.
There's so many ways to go out and make disciples in the church, right? Because you're not making disciples always of when you preach the gospel, right? But there's always people in the church. This is why Paul says the older men should teach the younger men, the older women should teach the younger women, because there's a discipleship, right? So Scott is older than me. I am older than Jagger. Hey, Jagger, how's it going?
You're older than me.
I'm older than you, but I'm not really. We're more peers, I'm more of your disciple. So, but
Okay.
I'm older than Jagger. You're older than Jagger, right?
Yep.
So there's a discipleship could happen there. So Jagger is older than, say, Josh Ladson, right? Jagger could do that to him, right?
And then there's people that are even younger than Ladson.
So you see how it tears down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can all just teach what we know down to a certain point. Now we can't teach, like, I want to say Josh Ladson could go and, go to...
teach moral and ethics.
Yeah, right. Or teach the Trinity. He may know the Trinity and believe the Trinity, but he may not be able to teach the Trinity because your boy here has a hard time explaining the Trinity. And I know a lot of theologians throughout church history have a hard time explaining it, but we all believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many opportunities. Open your eyes. They're all around you. That's what I would say to our seasoned veterans, that start with the closest thing to you. For me, for you, Mark, it's our families, it's our children, right? We're making disciples of them. We're teaching it. We're having those family devotion times. We're taking them to church. We're singing the songs. We're watching the good shows that try to build. We're taking them to VBS. We're doing these things that help teach them more about God and His ways at their age level. After that, if you don't have children, if you're not married, I would say there's young people in the church. There's friends. As you continue to be that light that shines before men, people are going to come to Christ, and then you have more of a mission field, right? You're then have another person to disciple, and the purpose is not to always keep them as a disciple, right? The purpose is to train them in the ways and send them forth to go make disciples, just like Bill Hull said in that quote we read at the beginning of the segment.
I like it. So to land the plane for me, man, I'm going to read us a passage and then break it down a little bit.
Why don't you just go ahead and land the plane altogether? I've said all I got to say.
That sounds good. All right, so this is coming out of Romans 12.
Oh, I love Romans 12.
CSB. It says, therefore, brothers and sisters, in view of the mercies of God, I urge you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, because this is your true worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that way you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. For by the grace given to me, I tell everyone among you to not think himself more highly than he should think, Instead, think sensibly, as God has distributed a measure of faith to each one. Now, as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, in the same way, we who are many of the same body in Christ and individually members of one another. It says, according to the grace given to us, we have different gifts. And in this, I think this kind of breaks down what the discipleship process and the discipleship journey is. The fact of we have to remember that we need to live our lives following Jesus as a living sacrifice.
That's a huge
Jesus,
teaching
as a
moment.
worship to God. So
that's that model.
So what does it mean to be a disciple? The first thing is the fact that you're supposed to live pleasing Jesus, right?
Right.
Live pleasing God. The second one is conform your mind, transform your mind, renew your mind, focus on the things that are not on this earth, but the things are above. I'm preaching to myself right here. And then so first you have to live for God, then you have to make sure your mind is thinking on the things of God. And then the third is be connected to the people of God. That's a sermon right there. That's what I would say is follow God with all that you have. Make sure your mind is focused on Him. Change your worldview and how that goes, and make sure you're connected to the body and know that we're all different parts of the same body, but we're all part of the body. So what does discipleship mean? It means to follow God, to know God, to pursue God, be connected, and go transform the world. That's what I think discipleship is all about.
Okay, and so just to finish,
that's my plane, man. You land your plane.
To finish the plane here, right? Because this was the how do we make disciples?
Yep.
We know how to be disciples now.
How do we make them?
All I'm going to do is repeat exactly what Gospel Coalition said, and I'll have the link in the show notes, but it says, teach, correct, model, and love. Do those 4 things, and that's how you make disciples. Teach them, just as Jesus taught, and teach them the words of the Bible. Correct them when they're in a little bit of error, right? But correct them only on the dogmatic, biblical, baseline, sure foundation. Otherwise, maybe suggest.
Otherwise, we're teaching man's theology, not God's theology.
Otherwise, maybe just suggest, hey, what about looking at this? Model. This is where you talk about live for Jesus, right? And love. Everything should be done in love and gentleness. And the scope does not mean you have to go out on the mission field. You can be a teacher right in your own backyard.
Time for Fun Facts with Filler.
Well, buddy, we went way longer than we thought we was going to on this episode.
We did, sir.
But thank you for that good. That was some real talk.
That was real talk.
Real conversation. Well, my friend, I shut down my iPad again because I did not want to see what the fun fact was. This is 2 weeks in a row that I don't know what the fun fact is. So bless our ears off, my friend.
I'm sorry, guys. I just want to let you know this fun fact.
Sorry.
This fun fact is really for Janelle, and she'll understand why. Now,
does this have to go back to the whole God's will for your life?
No.
And breaking up with your boyfriend?
No. But the fun fact of the day is now obsolete. Tyromancy.
Who's that?
Tyromancy.
Okay.
Was a form of divination that involved observing cheese to predict the future. So Janelle loves cheese.
What?
So Janelle, they used to take cheese to
way.
predict the future.
No way. So cheese was the old
Tyromancy.
Cheese is OG Magic 8 Ball.
Yes, it's the OG tarot cards. Horoscope is tyromancy.
So how?
Where they observe cheese to predict the future.
I mean, I've heard of palm readers. I've heard of this. I've heard of the tarot.
We're cheese watchers. So all of Wisconsin people are like, hey, we got this down.
The only thing that I know how to tell the future is those people that chase the big ball of cheese down the hill, the big chill of weed, the big chill of weeds. That's what I just said. The big ball of cheese, the big wheel of cheese going down the hill. The only future I'm predicting is broken bones. That's all I'm saying, man.
Jack and Jill. That's all I have to say.
Jack and Jill went down a hill.
Went uphill.
You know.
Fetch a pail of water.
You were Jack and I was Diane. But anywho, that was a very fun fact, my friend.
Fun fact of the day.
I love it.
Well, tyromancy.
Guys, tyromancy.
Go tell Beth. Be like, hey, I know. You know what tyromancy
I'm gonna
is?
go. Hey, baby, I'm gonna go get some cheese to see what that future holds for us.
Holds a nap.
I love it. Just like always, guys, feel free to leave us a review and rating over there on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get into the ears of more listeners just like you. If you're over on Spotify, leave a rating review. And if you're on YouTube, like the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, so whenever we drop a new video,
ding,
you get that notification. It's a little bit weird though because we technically technically stream our episodes and then just launch them later. So the days always seem off. But every Thursday morning, that YouTube video gets dropped.
Yes, sir. And if you're near the northern Indiana, southwest Michigan area, don't forget on July 22nd and 23rd,
You can hang
your boys,
out
we're going to be at the
with us.
Engedi Music Festival.
I love it.
You guys come hang out, have conversations that will be recorded and launched on future episodes.
We may not have coffee based on the nature by which we will be at a campground.
Yeah.
But you can hang out with us
But
anyways.
you can hang with it. We might have, I don't know, maybe some small special stuff if you
they
record
sell
with
that
us.
one coffee that comes like frozen like in a cake cup and you're like supposed to dump it in water. It's supposed to be freaking nominal.
No, but what I
don't
was
know.
going to say is those people that come and, chill and set a record with us might have a little something in store for them, the first 50 people, if you're there.
I love it.
So, anything else, man?
Just like always, you can learn more about us over at realtalkchristianpodcast.com. Ask your questions there by hit the contact form and just fill that out. And we would love to answer your question on the air. That's all I got, my friend. So until next time.
Take it easy.